Good evening. Welcome back to the People's Mirror. This evening, political activities are taking place across different parts of the country, ranging from Kilifi in the coastal part all the way to Lugari in Kakamega County in the western part of the region. Now, in Lugari, members of the ODM party, including the party leadership, that is the chairperson of the party, Gladys Wanga, the deputy party leader, Geoffrey Osotsi, and the SG of the party, Honorable Edwin Sifuna, among other dignitaries, paid a visit to the family of Cyrus Jirongo in Lugari to actually condole with them as a result of the passing on of this particular member of parliament, former for Lugari constituency, who worked in President Moi's parliament and during President Moi's government. Now, this particular part of the leadership of the party went to Lugari to actually Let's start again. Good evening. Welcome back to the People's Mirror. Now, this evening, political activities are taking place across the nation, spanning from Kilifi County, in the coastal part, all the way to Lugari constituency in Kakamega County in the western part of Kenya. Now, in Lugari constituency, it's the members of the ODM party, including the party leadership, being Honorable Gladys Wanga, the chairperson of the party, the deputy party leader, Geoffrey Osotsi, the secretary General of the party, Edwin Sifuna, and other key dignitaries of the ODM party are now visiting the family of Cyrus Jirongo to actually just pay their last respect as a result of the passing on of that former member of parliament for Lugari constituency, Honorable Cyrus Jirongo. Now, while in this particular place, statements have been made, and later on, maybe in another episode, we will take an overall look of all the statements that were made by leaders in this particular forum. But for this episode, we are going to put before the mirror the statements that were made by the deputy party leader, Honorable Geoffrey Osotsi, who said some very, very powerful things looking into the political landscape right now, and of course, moving into 2027. But before we put the statements of Osotsi here before the mirror, it's also very important to remember that in Kilifi County, where Governor Mungaro, alongside the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, was actually having a conversation with the people of Kilifi constituency in Kilifi County on an empowerment platform that now the Governor of Kilifi County, Honorable Mungaro, and the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Honorable Mbadi, were actually carrying out in that particular place. Now, in this particular gathering also, a lot of political statements were made into 2027 and beyond that we will put before the mirror, and specifically the statements that were made by the CS for Treasury, Honorable CS Mbadi. If this is your first encounter with our channel, The People's Mirror, please welcome to our channel. We report what happens in the Kenyan political scene, and you can just hit the subscribe button so that when we report this, you find the notifications and we keep you updated on what happens in the Kenyan scene daily. But we have also seen that most of our viewers interact with our channel and perhaps forget to subscribe. So if you can hit the subscribe button, we'll also appreciate here at The People's Mirror. Let us start with these stories, but first from Kakamega before we go to Kilifi. Now, in Kakamega, there is pointers that we have made here, the People's Mirror, from the statements that were made by Osotsi, who is the deputy party leader, and we'll just go pointer after the other as we make political comments on them, and then we take a look at what is going on in Kilifi before we conclude this episode. Now, while Mbadi was on his high horse in the coastal area, and we'll take a look at it very briefly, Osotsi, the deputy party leader of the ODM party, was taking a different turn in Lugari, and it seemed like Honorable Osotsi had waited for quite some time to actually make this particular statement, because in the beginning of his statement he said that most people identify the ODM party with broad-based arrangement, and so far this particular statements he did not dispute. He said that so far as it exists right now, the ODM party is of course part and parcel of the broad-based arrangement. However, Mr. Osotsi maintained that it is very, very unfair to look at the ODM party and the broad-based arrangement independent of the 10-point agenda. Now, the deputy party leader of the ODM party says that the 10-point agenda and the broad-based arrangement are glued together as one single item. And so there is no approach that can be given to the broad-based arrangement without that approach echoing or rather mirroring the 10-point agenda. Now, he declares that these are two tied items, of course, in this particular arrangement that they have with the Ruto right now. And he reminds not only the ODM members, but the nation at large that prior to the demise of Raila Odinga, the only public document that he atoned his sign alongside the President Ruto's signature to was the broad-based agenda. Now, Osotsi said that this was not as a result of the ODM party leaders as they are right now, neither was it as a result of Raila's interest and Ruto's interest individually, but it was arrived at as a 10-point agenda for the lives and the interest of the Kenyan people. And so he says that this is what was bringing the two factions of the political parties together to actually form this unity. It was purely based on the Kenyan people. And so if that is not being realized, then Mr. Osotsi said now there is no broad-based arrangement. He downplays the success of the arrangement, saying that this particular arrangement has not been realized fully, because among the things that were in the 10-point agenda was the fact that employment ought to have gone high for the young people, and the people that were affected as a result of the actions of the police and the government in the demonstrations that were witnessed in 2024 and 2025 be compensated. Now, Mr. Osotsi believed that this has since not happened. Neither has the people been compensated from the demonstrations, because now, as you know very well, the court dismissed the particular panel of experts that was formed by the president to look into this issue of compensation. But other than that, it is very, very interesting that employment, which was a very key thing in this particular arrangement for the youth, has also not soared high. You see, even when we take a look at what Mbadi is saying later on, it is very, very clear that even Mbadi admits that in their journey to actually realize this particular 10-point agenda, employment is one thing that they have not yet met. Now, Osotsi had said that he is aware of the games that the other camp could be playing, and he says that these games include the fact that the other camp might want the ODM party to support them without a deal. Now, Osotsi has said that there will be no deal into this particular arrangement up to 2027. And even beyond 2027, there will be no table to have a deal if the 10-point agenda, which is part of the broad-based arrangement, has not been met. Of course, you see, these conversations of deal are coming in the wave of this particular time when President Ruto is trying to consolidate his support ahead of the 2027 re-election for the UDA party. But as he does that, he is putting his eyes in a lot of parts of the country from where his second position candidate, that is the deputy president or the running mate in the 2027 election, can come from. This can come from the western part, where both Wetangula and Mudavadi are actually gearing support for President Ruto largely, or can come from the northeastern part, where Aden Duale has been seen to be drilling support for President Ruto. And this northeastern part might not only be a regional look to it, but might also be a tribal and communal approach to it, that if it does not become Duale, then most likely it will become Joho in that particular arrangement to tap into the Islam community and the Islam votes ahead of 2027. But others have also said that there is an opportunity to maintain Kindiki from the mountain region, or if to make a replacement of Kindiki, to make that replacement with someone like Waiguru, who will also still deliver a substantive part of the mountain to the Ruto's administration. However, for the ODM party that celebrates as the biggest party not only in Kenya but in East and Central Africa, they are saying that they are only conditioned to actually board this particular ship into 2027 and beyond is when they are given a confirmed position of the deputy presidency. Now, Ruto has all these choices in his hands ahead of 2027, and that particular choice being in the hands of Ruto unsettles the ODM party. Now, Osotsi says there will be no conversations if there is no deal. And even in that deal, he says there will be no deal if the 10-point agenda that they agreed on is not fully implemented. Of course, Osotsi also made a very important point while at Lugari today, ladies and gentlemen. He said that this particular arrangement also had an expiry date timeline, and he says that the expiry date timeline of this particular arrangement is set on March 6th, which is leaving this particular administration with less than 4 months between now and then to actually fulfill their mandate and enrich the arrangements that existed in this particular 10-point agenda. Now, he has actually cautioned and brought some fear to people who did not know that actually there is a committee that is actually overseeing this particular arrangement between the UDA and the ODM party. Now, he says that there is information that there are moves to doctor this particular report that is being submitted by the committee that is chaired by Agnes Zani, saying that there is a move to doctor this report so as to dupe the Kenyan people that, of course, the 10-point agenda has been met. Now, Honorable Geoffrey Osotsi, the deputy party leader of the ODM party, has said that he will not be part of that if the people come, if there is a cohort of group of people that want to come together to dupe the Kenyan people that this particular agenda has been met. He says that he is not going to take part of that. He says that he's aware of the other camp's lies and Ruto's lies, saying that Ruto promised Kenyans to actually better the life of hustlers as a narrative in the 2022 presidential elections. And he says until now, the hustlers, being the Mamamboga, the Boda Boda, and the Makanga, can testify that their lives have not been made better. Now, he says that ahead of the 2027 major elections, a new narrative has been cropped, and this is now the narrative of Singapore. Now, Osotsi says that at what point will the people head to Singapore if the ordinary lives of Mamamboga, Boda Boda, and the Makanga has not been made better? So now he says that the Singapore dream will not exist until the 10-point agenda is met, saying that the major things that are in that 10-point agenda are direct issues that are affecting the life of the Kenyan person right now. So he says until that is done, then there is no direction to Singapore. Now, attacking other individuals like Mbadi that we want to put their statements before the mirror right now, Osotsi says that the spirit of Raila is not transferable. It is not one spirit that can be transferred from one individual to the other. It is earned. And so those people who are trying to make political statements in regions to replace Raila are warned by the deputy party leader, saying that that particular spirit is earned and it is not, of course, given or transferred. So Sotsi confirms that they are here to stay as the lawyers who are part of the ODM party. Now, that includes, of course, SG Sifuna. You remember these statements are being made after the lawyer elders had a conversation with Sifuna and Osotsi on really the direction of the ODM party and the broad-based arrangement and all these statements. So these statements are the first public statements that were being made by Osotsi after that particular meeting with the lawyer leaders. And just to assure the lawyers and the lawyer leaders, in the middle of these conversations and calls by certain lawyer politicians, including by Boni Kalwale, to actually have lawyers walk away from ODM and form a lawyer unity party moving into 2027 and beyond, Osotsi now confirms that is of the contrary idea. He says that they have been here for quite some time investing in this party as lawyers, and so right now that Raila Odinga is gone, they are not going to just walk out of the party because of that. Of course, this now confirms, or rather puts to peace, members of the lawyer community who still find the ODM party as their party, but were a little bit uncertain about the future of this party and its leadership when it comes to other communities that are not part and parcel of the Luo community. Now, Osotsi has put that to rest, saying that other communities in Kilifi, in Narok, in Turkana, in Kisii, in Kakamega, and everywhere that the ODM party is dominant, she will still feel proud of being in the party because the party is bigger than just one community. Now, let's take a quick look away from Kakamega to Kilifi, where Governor Mungaro was actually having a visitor from the state, and the state visitor to Kilifi County now was the CS for Treasury, Mbadi. Now, you see, Mbadi has been making a lot of statements post Ruto's declaration. Of course, Mbadi has been making a lot of political statement. Of course, Mbadi has been making a lot of political statements that can be deemed to be political statements aimed at campaigning for President Ruto's second term. And this is part of the arrangement, rather the expectation that now people have with the UDA party moving into 2027, that one of the campaign strategies and tools that they will most likely use is to use these particular cabinet secretaries who were previously political kingpins or political controllers in their different regions as governors, members of parliament, and so forth. Now, the court has not put a stop to this on whether or not state officers like cabinet secretaries can actually take part in presidential campaigns, and we're hoping to see what the judiciary will say to that end. But before that decision is made, these particular individuals are having a run with state resources in these particular campaigns. Now, in Kilifi, it was disguised into rather what you would call an empowerment, and Governor Mung'aro was hosting the CS for Treasury Mbadi, and of course Mbadi made political statements. Now we want to take a look at his statements, including his declaration for presidency, which were made in Kilifi today. Number one, Mbadi acknowledged the fact that the coastal region has been affected largely with land issues, and of course this is a fact. For the coastal region, for quite some time there has been land issues, and there's a lot of history into this that we might not detail right now in this episode, but it details way back into even how coast got the chance to become part of Kenya, of course, from being part of the 16 coastal mile strip that belonged to the Sultan of Zanzibar, and in their arrangement with the British government, surrendering that part of the coastal strip to the British government then, so as to of course get protection for his sultanship in Zanzibar. And now later on how coast got to be integrated into that Kenyan space all the way into in independence, where when Kenyatta came, now the land issue in coast became a very live issue. Maybe later on in another episode we will detail the coastal disintegration when it comes to the unity and homogeneity of the nation. But today, let's go back to the statements of Mbadi. So he acknowledges this history of land disputes, and now he says that he will work hand in hand with Governor Mung'aro to help, and he has even promised that if there is any money that might be needed to facilitate the land issues around this particular area in Kilifi, then he should be a person that the Kilifi people actually consider as a person that they can reach to help. Now, Mbadi has said that even if it requires allocation from the treasury, then he will do his best to say that to help these particular people of Kilifi. But away from land, he has also acknowledged that in the entire Kilifi constituency, there is no kilometer of tarmacked road. Now, Mbadi has said that this is actually very wrong, when in his statements he's saying when other parts of the country have actually roads heading all the way to their bedrooms. Now, he has said that this is actually a bad governmental planning from the previous governments that have actually existed, and for this particular government, it displays discrimination. Now, the CS for Treasury has promised to have a conversation with the president, including kneeling to the president if there need be, so that an allocation can actually be made towards this particular constituency for tarmacking kilometers of road. So he now commits not to sit in his office from Monday to Friday on the 14th floor of the Treasury, saying that he wants to walk into the Kenyan villages and actually see the actual problems that are taking place with the Kenyan people. But he says that sometimes back he visited Tana River area and he found a situation where students or pupils could not cross to the other side and go to school because there was no bridge to cross over the river. He says that there were even cases where students and pupils who had tried to cross the river actually got attacked by crocodiles, and he says that he has since made sure that those students and pupils now have an access and a bridge to cross over, and in the same spirit is going to ensure that actually the Kilifi constituency that does not have any kilometer of tarmac road will have tarmac road. Interpretation into these statements by Honorable Mbadi have been made, and individuals are now putting them to the scene that perhaps Mbadi is trying to position himself for 2027 and beyond. And just to cut the bubble, before you can actually interpret more into this particular statement, he actually made that statement himself, and we'll take a look at it shortly. And now he has, of course, addressing the issues of the party. He has also addressed the issues of the ODM party, and he has said that he was the longest serving chairperson of that party before he got appointed as the cabinet secretary, and so he does not intend to resign from that party, even if he has since resigned from his position. And so with that said, he has now asked the members of Kilifi not to actually, of course, ditch the ODM party, saying that if members are active within the ODM party, then the ODM party gets to have a good negotiating power in the table. Now, he has asked the members of Kilifi to stay into the party, but he has also given a direction into 2027 politics, saying that there are only two major vehicles into 2027's politics right now, and those two major vehicles are the Gachagua's cohort that he calls the confusion team, and Ruto's team that he says has been rendering development and will render more development moving into 2027. So defending Ruto's regime, he said that they took over the government with zero resources, and President William Ruto has since now not only paid previous debts but has also sustained the shilling, which when they were taking the government was weak against the dollar. He said the shilling was doing 162 to a dollar then, but has since been stabilized to 129 and 130 to a dollar. He admits, like Osotsi, that the only thing that is remaining hugely within the 10-point agenda and in Ruto's government is issues of employment. And I don't know how Mbadi intends to address those issues of employment, which now he acknowledges still take place. Now, interestingly, Mbadi now declares that he himself is fit for the presidential seat, and is saying that if it will not be Mungaru or Joho in 2032 rather, then it will be himself, Honorable Mbadi, saying that Kibaki was a finance CS or finance minister before becoming president, and Uhuru Kenyatta was as well finance minister before becoming president. So he says himself, Mbadi, is CS for treasury, and so he will only follow on the footpaths of those two former ministers for finance and become president in 2032. Now, these statements that Mbadi is saying about Ruto's second term are coming shortly after Orengo said that you cannot trust a president's second term. But it seems that in that particular spirit, the ODM party is divided, with the cohort of Mbadi saying Ruto is the way, but the cohort of other individuals who are not in Ruto's government actively right now looking for other options ahead of 2027. But as that is happening, they are only doing this sustainably for 5 years, as each of them individually tried now to portray their interest for 2032, including Mbadi, who has now declared his interest for the presidential seat come 2032. Keep it the People's Mirror, so that as they envelop from all corners of Kenya, we recap them for you here at the People's Mirror Daily. Until our next episode.